people approach life from a position of weakness rather than strength, disadvantage rather than advantage, chance rather than choice. Many don't actually realize that life can be lived from a position of advantage. And you know what's behind all of that? I can tell you. People go to school and learn almost nothing about how life really works.
Dr. Brian Reuben, leading authority on the subject of strategy, leadership, and personal growth.
Imagine all of the organizations that have benefited from his exceptional insight. Seville Energy Luxembourg, Department of Petroleum Resources, Dolphin Telecom, Trident Energy United Kingdom, Africa Reassurance Corporation, among others. He holds business trainings regularly in Lagos, Dubai, and London for senior business leaders who depend on his insight to resolve their toughest business challenges. Dr. Brian is an advisor to top leaders in businesses and governments around the world. His passion is helping people and organizations unleash their full potentials, outperform their industry, and lead.
Now discover the insights driving the world's biggest names and organizations as you join Dr. Brian for the Brian Reuben Masterclass.
Hello everyone, it's my pleasure to indeed welcome you to this edition of the Brian Reuben Masterclass. I don't want to believe that you are doing well where you are. And today we're going to be giving attention to what happens when great leaders make bad decisions. Now, this is a very important subject, really, because you see, like John Maxwell would say, everything rises and falls on leadership. When you get leadership right, everything is just gonna be okay, right? The reason for, see, as I always say, leadership is a fundamental human responsibility. When people have the habit of not taking responsibility in communities, in nations, in societies, where people form the habits of not taking responsibility for the issues they find in their world, you also realize that such people are usually very backwards because things happen when people take action. When you take action, respond to the problems you find in your society. When you take action, things change. When you don't take action, things cannot change. All right. So it is important that we take some time to really consider why great leaders can even make bad decisions. You know, that's an irony, right? A great leader making a bad decision. And, you know, decisions are the cornerstone and the building blocks of every outcome that a person could have, whether it be great outcome or it be a lousy outcome. Great decisions will result in great outcomes. Lousy decisions will result in lousy outcomes. So as always, I like to emphasize to people that outcomes are dependent variables. Results are dependent variables. If you worry less about results and focus more on doing the right things, the results will take care of themselves. The trouble that we have in the world is that more people are more concerned about the results. If it's in a company, for example, you want to make sure that the shareholders are fine. You want to make sure that the stock market is reporting what you want it to report. And this will lead leaders to doing some unfair practices that only leads to deceiving the public because they want the results to look okay. That's what leads to people being fake, being unreal. That's the reason, okay? So it is important that we understand that the micro elements of our outcome are decisions. If the micro elements are great, the outcome will be great. So already you have a problem when you're trying to manipulate the results. All right. The proof that you know what you're doing is by giving due attention to the micro elements. So I want us to give attention to what happens when great leaders make bad decisions. Now, I said there is an irony, and say we're going to be running this series over a period. So we just came out from a series of making hard choices. Now we are dealing with when great leaders make bad decisions. And I said that is an irony. It's an irony because great leaders produce great results. That's why they are great. The reason they are called great leaders is because they produce great results. All right. They've come to be known as people, names that can be trusted. And the reason you trust them is because they produce results. And the reason they're able to produce results because they made great decisions. And the reason they want to make great decisions, great choices, is because they are great. And the reason they are great is because of their perspective, their mindset. Now, here is what you understand. Here's what you understand. Every organization that is termed great is run by great leaders. The reason the organization is termed a great organization or a great nation, if it's a nation, is because it has some great minds working behind the scene to make things happen. Now, that's why you see the results. Okay? Meaning that what builds organizations, ordinary organizations, into extraordinary organizations is the greatness of the choices and the decisions which have been made by great leaders because of their great perspective. So the organization, the nation that you see, is a consequence, the result of great choices made. If you see an organization that keeps going great, all right, overcoming times and difficulties and pressures and standing strong, that means the people behind has been consistently making great decisions, or at least the greatness of their choices, the great choices they've made outweighs the mistakes they might have made. And that's very important. And when organizations or when nations fail, it is a proof that some wrong decisions have been made. Some bad decisions have been made. Therefore, the state of the nation is not necessarily the problem. That the profitability is beginning to go low is not the problem because it can change, as you will understand as you journey along in the series. That the standard of living in a nation is no longer where it should be. It's not a problem because that can change. Oh my God, this is very interesting because, like I said, decisions are the cornerstone, that means the foundation, and the building blocks of any great organization or a great nation or a great life. Get the decisions right and everything will be okay. Now you understand why it is important that we look into this topic. So the question is, why in the world would a great leader make a lousy choice, make a bad decision? Why should that happen? He's a great leader. Oh, how that happens all the time. That is the reason why nations fail. That's why Babylon fell. That's why several nations that you hear about in history lost their place. Because at some point in time, somebody made the wrong choice. When you think about business organizations, that's the reason why businesses they sign for bankruptcy. Or they even lose their place and become absorbed into a more successful organization. That's the reason. Bad decisions made by great leaders. Now you understand that no organization is immune to failure. Now, the only thing, the thing that causes organizations to rise, you need to understand this. The thing that causes organizations to rise is great choices, great decisions. When those decisions are no, when those decisions are not, when the leaders making those decisions lose sight of why greatness happened in the first instance, everything falls like a pack of cards. So you want to keep an organization strong. You want to keep a nation strong. Great decisions. And so what I'm trying to do is to prepare you. All right? When you understand that great organizations, great businesses, great nations can fail, then even if you are in the height of your success right now and everything looks great, you want to ask yourself questions just to be sure that you are on course, that the right thing is happening with you. And that's very important. So we are considering what happens when great leaders make bad choices. Well, what happens, first of all, what happens when great leaders make bad choices is that failure begins. It's like it's like a sickness inside. All right, as you will discover, it begins to attack the body. It may not be immediately obvious, but as time goes on, you realize the changes start taking place. All right. So, and the thing is, when organizations are very successful, when nations are successful, they never believe that everything can ever go wrong. It's just the truth. It seems like the towering success will remain. But history teaches otherwise. Companies have gone up to come down, nations have gone up to come down. Babylon went up and came down. And several other great empires have experienced that. Okay, so you don't really believe that it could ever get that way, but it happens. It happens. And the thing is, once that difficulty sets in, once a firm or a nation sets on the path of decline, recovery is always very difficult. There are a few companies like IBM, all right, very few companies like IBM and HP that were able to make a great comeback after some terrible experiences. Not so many companies can have great leaders that can turn things around that way. All right. Usually, when that happens, what you find is that it just continues. So you don't even want to get there. You want to run a check right now on your organization to be sure that you are not on the path of decline without realizing it. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to bring some clarity to you right now in this conversation. Okay. So this is just an introduction, and over the several days following, we'll be able to deal with more concrete issues. Okay, so we just try to come on the speed and even look at a couple of things. So I said once decline sets in, it's difficult to reverse, very difficult. For some companies like Wang Laboratories, all right, their own decline was sharp and instant. They were gone. And some tried to turn around, like Circuit City and Kmart, and eventually they took the way out. Some will limp along, all right, for some time. Imagine Kodak. Kodak was able to manage the difficulty for more than a decade. More than a decade. But eventually they gave way. They gave in a sign for bankruptcy. That's just how it is. And when that happens, there is this tendency for leaders to think that the reason for the decline is the environment, government policies, political situations, economic situations is usually the culprit. All right. But why that could be true? When you think about a company like Northern Rock in the UK, that it was during the 2008 recession and they were starved of funds and they took the downward, they failed, the company failed, all right? Um, but that's just a few, that's just one of such cases that is rather an exception than a rule, all right? General Motors was already in some deep trouble because the Great Recession, before the recession came in. The recession only heightened and accelerated their decline. The recession didn't cause the problem, it accelerated it. The problem has been there over the years. So you see, bad decisions, and like I said, it's rather surprising. Why would a great leader make a bad decision? But it happens. So let's even get some things in context. We've agreed that great leaders produce great results. Okay? Now, great results come from great decisions made by these great leaders. Okay? Now, there is, and now that's very clear. I don't need to say more on that. Great results, okay, come from the great decisions. I've explained that already. I've said that already. So now the results of great decisions is very important. Can be instant. It can also be non-instant. And the same goes for the result of bad decisions. All right. So sometimes the result of great decisions can be instant. I remember when J.C. Penney was trying to turn around their business, and they got the gentleman who's well-respected, Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson was responsible. It was him that Mr. Steve Jobs hired when he wanted to set up the Apple Store, and he is widely known as a great leader, very, very great. So the day that the company hired Ron Johnson, the stock price of the company went up. Now, since there was no other announcement about J.C. Penney that day, it is clear that it was the announcement, the choice, the decision to hire Ron Johnson, a veteran business executive. All right, it was the decision to hire him that brought about the increase in the stock price in the market. So that was an instant result of a decision that was made. But over the past few months, it turned out that the choice of Ron Johnson to run J.C. Penney was a lousy one. Ron Johnson, respected, who's produced amazing results, couldn't produce in Ron Johnson and couldn't produce in J.C. Penney. J.C. Penney lost lots of money. What happened? A great leader came in and made bad decisions. You know, this story, if you read the story and all that be written about it, you'll find out that even sometimes the employee, other managers raise an alarm, say, the strategy you're trying to implement, let's test in 1 or 2 stores. He said, no, we didn't test in Apple. Why? How in the world would Ron Johnson make such decisions? Such a great leader. That's an excellent example of a great leader making bad decisions. But you know what? At the time of such decisions, they hardly appear to be bad decisions. You know, when I was dealing with a series on making tough choices, I did refer to how a $900 million in advert money from Google to MySpace accelerated the decline of MySpace. But you see, in 2006, when the deal happened, it was highly praised and celebrated in the media. All of the analysts thought that this was the best deal ever to happen, that this was the best course of action for both companies. Well, the next few years proved that it was not. By 2007, just a year after that, or not even up to a year, the company MySpace was now worth billions of dollars. But it was quite incredible that just in a matter of 4 years, 2011, MySpace has lost so much value that it was sold for $35 million. A company that was worth over $1 billion? Are you kidding me? The decline didn't start in one day. It began the day they realized they needed the advert money more than what their users cared about. They annoyed their users and all of them left them for Facebook. Have you wondered why you don't have Google ads running on Facebook? Facebook learned from MySpace. So sometimes it doesn't happen immediately, but it sure does happen. And like I said, at the time the decision was made, everybody praised it. It seemed like a wonderful decision. So now that's the same thing. When great leaders make wrong decisions, they don't realize that those are wrong decisions. They celebrate it. Everybody praises them because everything looks okay. And that is what the problem is. So you understand now that you want to do a check on yourself as a leader. Whether you are the CEO of a company, you're a mayor, you're a prime minister, and you're watching now, you now should be thinking, everything looks okay. Are we making the right choices? Are we making the right decisions? Because great leaders can make bad choices, and that is not a surprise. It's not a surprise because leaders are tenants of time and context. And when you're not awake to changing contexts and changing times, you could make the wrong decision without even realizing what you're doing. So oftentimes, the results of bad decisions are hardly instant. Sometimes it's just not instant. Sometimes everything seems okay, leading to irreversible failure eventually. It's like a cancer. It begins to eat deep. The person looks okay. The company looks okay. The nation looks okay. All right. The district, the state looks okay. This is a very wonderful decision. The governor will be receiving congratulatory messages that he's done great. And then decline sets in and the whole thing turns out differently. And you can't even imagine what's going on. People get surprised. See, by the time people realize that this is the bad choice, it becomes difficult. All right. So it's important that you understand what this is about. Okay, so but we've been talking about leaders making bad decisions. We've said great leaders are great because of the greatness of their perspective, the excellence of their thoughts, their exposure. That's what makes them great. So they make great decisions. But now they're making bad decisions. So what is a bad decision? A bad decision is that which is inadequate, which is unsatisfactory, which is worthless. So a bad decision is case specific. What applies as a bad decision to company B could be a great decision for company A. So you cannot say, well, this was how they did it, so I'm going to do just the same thing here. No, a bad decision is inadequate for you. It is unsatisfactory for you, and it could also be totally worthless. But like I said, at the time of the decision, most times, no great leader, no leader at all will just say, I want to make bad decisions. No, everybody wants to succeed. So it happens because the people ain't aware that those decisions are bad decisions. You see what the problem is? Okay. So the question then is, how can a great leader make a bad decision? Like I told you, this is only an introduction. We're going to be dealing with this in series, okay? So how can a great leader make a bad decision? Very important question. And there are two reasons that I'll give you why that even happens. The first reason is making the right decision for the wrong context. That means the decision is okay, but under this context, it is wrong. All right? Let me give you an example. Reorganization is a good decision. It can be a good decision. So imagine there an organization, it's having issues of performance. Performance is not the way it should be. Okay? And saying, let us reorganize, is not a bad decision. Okay? That's a good decision. There's only one problem. You don't reorganize if you have and the problem is with a contextual problem. In other words, if the business environment has changed, rendering your strategic direction meaningless, reorganization can help you. Reorganization is rather going to accelerate your failure. Here is what it is. Reorganization in the face of changing business context, all right, only means you're doing the wrong things more effectively. So you are being effective. The decision will make you effective, but you are effective in the wrong thing. See that? So because you are effective in the wrong thing, you fail even faster. Now that's one of the cases in which a great leader can make a bad decision because he's no longer aware that times have changed. He's not awake to the changes. So in this case, he is making the right decision for the wrong context. It's called contextual ignorance. So contextual ignorance can lead a great leader to make a bad decision. That was what happened to Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson took decisions that worked in Apple and plugged it into J.C. Penney, not remembering that the customer segment was different. And because he didn't do that, he was contextually ignorant. As a result of that, all of the efforts he made resulted in very serious losses for the company. See that? Contextual ignorance. Then you have the second reason, the second situation where a great leader can make a bad decision. And that is when this leader is actually unable, all right, to make the right decision. So you have this inability to make the right decision. He's unable to make the right decision. And that is what you call structural hindrance. You see, the way the organization is designed could disable a leader from making the right decision. All right. So he makes decision, but the context frustrates him, doesn't even let him make the right decision. So you have structural hindrance. So under such circumstances, the great leader makes bad decisions because of structural hindrance. The way the business or the organization is structured doesn't let him make the right decisions. Okay, now think about a situation where the board has an overbearing influence on the management. All right, that could create a problem. That he's unable to make the right decision. He's disabled. That's structural hindrance. And then you have the next case where you have the unwillingness in the side of the leader to make the right decision. Unwillingness. Oh boy, oh boy. You find that unwillingness in the case of Kodak. Kodak focused on reorganization. I think it was up to 8 reorganizations in 10 years or something, because they were fighting digital photography. They didn't want digital photography to take over their business because they realized that they have very strong competitive advantage in the film and chemical industry. They were controlling up to 60% of the market in the United States and around the world. They had a strong influence in the market. They were leader of the market. So the leaders there made bad decisions. What happened? Very simple. A gentleman called Stevenson, who was their own engineer, invented the digital camera. And it was still just at its early stages then, because the camera would take up to 5 minutes to take, or even more to take a photo. I was as big as a microwave oven. But that was the beginning of digital camera. And he did the presentation to his superiors, his boss, telling them, look what I've made. And they congratulated him, say you've done a great job, but make sure nobody hears about it. In fact, they even supported him with the funds to keep doing his research, only on one condition, that he would have to keep it under the radar. Why? Because it was going to destroy things for them. So they were unwilling to make the right decision. They knew the right thing to do. All right. But they refused to take their position as tenants of time and context. And because they will not take their place as tenants of time and context, It was only a decade later, Eastman Kodak was no more. I think about 11,000 people lost their jobs. That's how serious it is. 11,000 people, about that, lost their jobs because Kodak could not make the right decision. Not that they didn't know the right decision. They know the right decision, but they were afraid. They were concerned about the assets they have built, the relationship they had built, the investment they had made in machinery and all of that. They didn't want to see that just go away like that in pursuit of some new kind of business. Digital technology photography was here and they wouldn't want to invest in that. Great leaders in Kodak. You know, Kodak was great because of the greatness of the leaders. Then things changed and they knew the change. They knew it. They even, listen, they invented the digital camera that destroyed their company. They did. So why won't they make a decision to take it serious? Because they were unwilling to do that. So you have unwillingness to make the right decisions. Under these three circumstances, great leaders can make bad decisions. This is going to be a quite interesting discussion over the days. I'm going to be coming and talking to you more and more about. So this is just an introduction, and we're going to be having some more conversations around this. Why great leaders make bad decisions. I know the effect of bad decision. The result of it is failure, business failure. That's what happens. Business fails over time. May not happen immediately. Sometimes it happens immediately. All right. And sometimes it drags on for a while, like with the case of Circuit City and Kmart, dragged on for a while, about 7 years. They were off. In the case of Kodak, dragged on, they were up to over a decade, all right, and they were out. There are only a few cases where the effect of bad decisions could be corrected, like the case of IBM and HP. In many other situations, they just went down the road. In the case of Apple also, see, Steve Jobs was able to come back and turn things around. That there are not so many cases like that. So you want to make sure that you stay with me on this because I'm going to be showing you the signs, all right, the characteristics of bad decisions so you can get against them. My name is Dr. Brian Reuben, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you at this time. We're going to do this again and again, and I'm asking you to keep following this page, share this video so that more and more people can get to watch and get to learn. And I want to thank you on behalf of everyone here with me. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you again very soon. Goodbye.